All the world's a stage. I've been told this many times by wise and compassionate people. Growing up in musical theater, this resonated with me. Wherever I went became new settings to explore. Whoever I encountered became new characters in my life story. Antagonists, wise philosophers, fairy godmothers, supporting roles. Every new experience has evolved into the many scenes of my story. I find myself following this metaphorical yellow brick road that has no end. Sometimes I'm walking briskly, other times I'm skipping. There are moments when I take some steps backwards. I've even tripped and fallen flat on my face with no desire to get back up. But I always do get back up and keep it moving. Along the way, I've met companions. I've learned how to work with others, how to be patient, how to be selfless and give back. The overarching educational theme of my life has been filled with teaching and learning. I yearn to learn in ways that will facilitate my spiritual and emotional growth within myself and my relationships with other people. This educational yellow brick road has been a non-linear roller coaster of events that have led to my graduate career at UCSD. I learned American Sign Language during my undergraduate. I took a liking to it, started making ASL music videos on YouTube, and developed a passion for the deaf community, culture, and language. I kept practicing, went to deaf events, and began tutoring around campus. I tried to think of various ways in which I could use my knowledge of ASL to better the world around me. My first thought? Research. I started a research internship at the University of Chicago, where I analyzed deaf students' proficiency on science conservation and math equivalence tests. It was interesting, but tedious. I didn't like being inside a lab and behind a computer screen. So I discovered another outlet, interpreting. I applied to the only deaf university in the world, Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C., to get a master's in interpreting. I got accepted. Woohoo! To be honest, I absolutely hated it. I felt lost and like I was running on a treadmill, exhausting myself and getting nowhere. I understood only a small portion of what was going on in my classes. I became the counterpart of what deaf people go through in a hearing world. Despite my awareness and acceptance of the reasons behind the deaf community's viewpoint, I was still unhappy. The culture shock hit me like a lightning bolt. After a gruesome semester, I hopped on a plane back to Southern California feeling defeated. Still, my overall feelings ignited something in me. I wanted to make a substantial change. I did some research and found the Master's in ASL English Bilingual Education program at UCSD. Once again, I experienced hardship with my fluency. I wasn't being placed in deaf classrooms, but I was being placed in hearing classrooms that deepened my knowledge of pedagogy and social justice values. However, I was falling behind in my receptive skills, and therefore, my fluency level wasn't improving in a way that was conducive to the program. I was teaching in a middle school deaf classroom, and I was miserable. I wasn't happy with the prevalent cultural imbalance, but I was pushing through each day. It was hard to connect to these students as a hearing person. I was actually told it would be unethical for me to teach deaf students. Those words cut me to the core. My world collapsed and I felt like everything was a waste of time, money, and effort over the past 2 years of my life. I would come to find out this wasn't a waste at all. There was a glimmer of hope among all of this despair. As a part of my master's thesis research, I produced an ASL musical at UCSD. The musical was the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. It was presented in English and ASL simultaneously. My goal was to make performing arts fully accessible to every member of a theatrical audience, no matter their hearing status. I believe it's imperative that our society work toward a more inclusive environment across all cultural semantics. I rounded up an awesome cast, transliterated the script, taught the interpretations, directed the show, and also played one of the characters. The musical brought together a multitude of diverse elements of the deaf and hard of hearing community, allowing theater to be a space where American Sign Language and deaf culture was appreciated, celebrated, represented, and explored. Spelling Bee was the product of passion, dedication, and love of language. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity. It was a positive and therapeutic outlet during a very difficult time in my graduate career. Everything was coming full circle for me. My interests of education and performing arts were merging. So, there was a part of my yellow brick road that was jagged, eroded, and resulted in me basically falling off a cliff to a lower point. I was left bruised and jaded. My determination and perseverance never faded though. All of the choices I made up to this point happened for a reason. I'm going to be an educator. I am an educator, just in a different capacity from what I planned. I've come to learn that change is scary, but also necessary. It's important to maintain passion through hardship. This is the philosophy I want to spread to my future students, or anyone I come in contact with and have the privilege of teaching and learning from. Mistakes are okay. Deviating from a former plan is okay. Teachers are like chameleons. We have many adaptations that allow us to implement engaging lessons, inspire social justice and equity, differentiate instruction, and be a big kid ourselves. I'm content with the current state of my yellow brick road. I've played many roles on stage. I've been the ingenue, the antagonist, ensemble member, the nerd. the innocent, the hopeful hero. My most challenging role I have to play every day is myself. My script is always changing and the struggles or rising actions will be inevitable. I don't know what the next scene of my script is, but one thing's for sure, I have the power to choose which direction my character will go.